welcome. It is the first time I get to say this. It's an honor. It's a privilege. Welcome to the Always Be Building podcast hosted by the Dynasty Football Factory Network. I am Stephen Chalmers, joined as always by my good friend Ryan Odell, a.k.a. Deli. Ryan, say what's up to the people.
What's going on, everybody? Glad to be here. First show. Nervous a little bit going here, but we're excited to get this started. This is something we've been working on for the last couple of weeks now, and we're finally pumped to be here with the first show. We figured we just had the NFL rookie draft. We're right in the dead center of dead time of Dynasty. Well, not dead anymore, but it's rookie season, baby. So we're getting right into it. We're going to go through the first round, ADP, maybe see what we're looking to trade these picks for if you're trying to move up or trade back. And with that being said, Steve, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, just want to say thank you to the Dynasty Football Factory. It's a huge opportunity for us. We're excited to be here. And we plan on keeping this thing going, guys. This is a project that we've been invested in heavily. We started writing with them about 2 months ago, and we wanted to start podcasting as well. So here we are. Tonight is going to be just covering the standard 10 team first round. We're going to go through the ADP first before we start talking about trades and things like that. So standard ADP for the first round of your 2024 rookie drafts starts off Caleb Williams, number 1. Marvin Harrison Jr. is number 2. You have Jaden Daniels, number 3. You have Malik Neighbors, number 4. You have Roma Dunze, number 5. You have Drake May, number 6. You have Brock Bowers, number 7. JJ McCarthy, number 8. Xavier Worthy, number 9. And you have Brian Thomas Jr., number 10. A good list, very prestigious list. A lot of fun, a lot of players to talk about here, guys, tonight. We do have a comment coming in. What's up, fellas? You're pulling me away from my Carolina Hurricanes. Oh, man, playoff hockey is the best. I apologize, but, at least you got here for a good cause. Let's do this, man. Let's do this. Let's break this down. First player, consensus, Caleb Williams.
Yeah, who as a rookie, no snaps played right now is going 201 in startups. That's pretty high. I mean, I guess typically you kind of see this with the first rookie quarterback. We saw it last year with Bryce Young. We're seeing it again this year. Caleb Williams sneaking in towards the front of the first round. I'm sure in the front of the second round, back to the first. Excuse me. Justifications for that? I think that sounds about right.
I've seen Caleb go anywhere from pick 7 to 11, depending on how they like him in that range. Typically sits in the 7, 8, 9 hole around Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, him. Then you got a mix of like Herbert, Burrow in that range, depending on how it plays out. So Caleb Williams, let's talk about some positives and some negatives here. Not many negatives to say here. A lot of the negatives come down to the fact of how did Caleb Williams show up in big games in his collegiate career. It's the one negative that a lot of people tend to throw around Caleb Williams, sometimes it's prima donna attitude. And to me, I kind of step back from that. I kind of see this as like a leadership, a guy who really, really wants to win, a guy that wants to win no matter what. I don't see him as a prima donna. Football is an emotional game. Anybody that's ever played football at any level, it is a very emotional game. And, you won a 2022 Heisman. Expectations were high in 2023. The USC Trojans didn't live up to those expectations. But let's talk about it. Anytime the USC Trojans defense allowed less than 35 points per game, they were winning games. Caleb Williams is one of the most decorated college quarterbacks of all time. I think it's a great landing spot with Chicago. We've talked about it. And honestly, I think he has a very bright future ahead of him.
Yeah, I think Caleb Williams absolutely was that whole entire USC team. Defense was absolutely awful. They were playing behind in a lot of games because the defense wasn't doing a whole lot compared to the offensive side. He didn't get a whole lot of help, right? That being said, sure, he got a little bit emotional because, as a quarterback, he knows what he's supposed to be doing. He knows that he's supposed to be the leader of this team, the whole 9 yards. Of course, he's going to get emotional. You see him go to his family after the Rose Bowl game when he lost, or excuse me, the bowl game that he lost. I actually like to see stuff like that out of a quarterback because it shows they actually really want to win. They want to be good. They want to do all the things right. He's got some things that were outside of emotion, like wanting to own part of the team and stuff like that, that like kind of rubs through the wrong way. But I think you 100% have to just detach yourself from those thoughts when it comes to actual talent on the field. Dude's great outside the pocket. He's great inside the pocket. Throwing on the run, fantastic. And he's got the wheels to get it done if he needs to. And he's not a quarterback that's going to look straight for the run like a Jaden Daniels or even a Justin Fields coming to the league. He can stay in the pocket and succeed. And if he needs to run, he has the ability to do so.
Sure.
Yeah.
Not a lot of flaws in his game. Typically people will say, well, he's 6 foot, 6'1", 210, 215. I don't care. One of the most talented quarterbacks to come in the draft in quite some time. So like I said, talking about 101 and rookie startup drafts, if you're there, you're probably you probably own a very bad roster. Let's just say that. Unless something crazy and drastic happened injury-wise that led you to the 101, then you're set for future success and you can make trades in this spot. But I'm more interested in the trade talks for startups. Caleb Williams. Again,
out of all things that you pulled up, I'm so surprised that Keep Trade Cut is on our screen as far as values go. But let's rip it, man. What you got for me? Throw some trade scenarios at me.
So the reason I use Keep Trade Cut is typically because it is a universal tool for the fantasy community. It's a free tool. So I'll say that. Not a lot of industry or fantasy content creators in the industry use Keep Trade Cut. I do think Keep Trade Cut is a toxic tool at times, but it does allow for people to check quote unquote rankings, have questions if they're for a trade with their trade calculator, things like that. It's a little skewed, so that's why I don't like to use it. But again, we're just going to go down here with universal rankings for the fantasy industry. So Caleb Williams, QB7. Seems a little high. Is it warranted? We'll see. You have some guys here. You have Jordan Love, who just came off a QB4 finish. Anthony Richardson, who was averaging over 20 fantasy points per game his rookie year before the injury. Justin Herbert, who we've seen have multiple QB1 finishes. Kyler Murray, we've never seen average less than 18 fantasy points per game. So let's throw a trade out there. I'm just going to see where your head's at with Caleb Williams. I'm going to throw a couple scenarios. Would you trade CeeDee Lamb to acquire Caleb Williams?
No, I'm probably holding CD. Let me talk about a guy who's coming off a season. Given there's always outlier seasons for these big receivers like this, especially CeeDee Lamb. He averaged around 21 points last season at not the quarterback position. You love to see that. I think you can still have a quarterback that's still putting out good numbers, even if he's averaging 15, 16, 17 points a game. If you have 21 points sitting in your receiving spot, I think that's solid, and you can take away from that. CeeDee Lamb I have no problem with. I think the interesting one that you asked me before the show, and I'll throw this one at you. You asked me Trevor Lawrence in a 2025 first or Caleb Williams. What do you sit on that side?
Tough question. And I'm only going to say this because I haven't seen the ceiling for Trevor Lawrence. We knew what the ceiling was when he came into the league, and we've never seen him exceed that. Yes, we've seen a QB8 finish. We've seen a QB12 finish. Not bad. But Trevor Lawrence was also deemed generational. And I will say at this point, I've been disappointed with Trevor Lawrence's play and his ability to step to that elite level. But the 2025 class is a piece that I really, really want a part of, like when it comes to the draft. There's a lot of elite prospects in this class. Again, we've never seen Caleb Williams on the field. Most of us have him deemed as bust-proof, but nobody is 100% bust-proof. I think with this trade, you have to take the chance on the future capital here due to the fact of how loaded the 2025 class is. We talk about how the running back market is going to be reset in this class. There's a lot of elite running backs on top of the fact that you have three 3 elite wide receivers in this class to build around. Some people will say Egbuka as a 4th, but that's not really me. But I think that's a trade I am going to take.
Yeah, 100%. You asked me the same thing, and I think the immediate answer for me is to take the package there. I get Trevor Lawrence may not live up to the hype that he once had, but the big gap between the 25 first is huge. I mean, McMillan is coming out, Luther Burden, Evan Stewart. I mean, this is a whole separate video we could talk about the 2025 class. But man, it is absolutely loaded. Now, preferably, obviously, context matters. I guess a late first, I'm not going to like leap at. If it's a really, really, really contending team that you're guaranteed to get 110, I might be a little bit hesitant then. But 1-6, or I mean the 1-6, 101 to 108, golden. I'd take that deal 10 times out of 10.
Fair enough. I also saw a trade. It was Justin Herbert for Caleb Williams straight up. I've seen that a lot in the fantasy market recently.
Yeah. I mean, it's close. I think the big reason why is I don't think you would really see it as much if he wouldn't be going through such a culture change right now. I think right now, Justin Herbert's value is probably low as it'll be maybe his entire career. Everybody's so scared of Harbaugh coming in. They're going to be run heavy, all these things. I know it's a whole separate conversation, but I think I would at least consider Herbert for a 101 straight up. Sure. I think it's very, very close. And you could tell me you'd rather have Caleb, and I would not argue with you. But I'm taking what I've seen, a top 5 quarterback at his peak. Give me Justin Herbert.
I agree. I'm going to bring in some of these comments as we continue. So let's hop on the Marvin Harrison Jr. train. Let's bring up the wide receiver rankings just to show you guys how inflated Marvin Harrison Jr.'s value is when it comes to the community overall. This is insane. If you notice this, we have Marvin Harrison Jr. as wide receiver 4 without stepping on an NFL gridiron. My question to you is it warranted?
Yeah. I mean, obviously you love the landing spot. The Cardinals' landing spot doesn't get any better. I think as you're watching this draft, you see a few teams that don't really would love to see him. I know the Patriots are talking about taking him and passing on a quarterback. Obviously, that didn't happen. But he falls all the way down to the Cardinals, and they were not trading out of the pick. They got their franchise receiver 1 from Kyler Murray. I think they're ready to go. You kind of look at what DeAndre Hopkins and Kyler Murray did early on in his career, and you just see money, at least in my mind. Now, top 4, top 5, maybe not just yet, but we are talking Dynasty where you're going to get 10, realistically, we'll call it 6-7 really good seasons out of Marvin Harrison Jr.
Fair.
Where's he at right now? Who's ahead of him? Assuming Jamar, JJ, CD, and Amonra?
No, that's it. Amon St. Brown comes in at number 5 on the keep trade cut. Marvin Harrison Jr. number 4. Marvin Harrison Jr. ahead of notable wide receivers: Amon St. Brown, Puka Nacua, Garrett Wilson, A.J. Brown.
Yeah. I think Amonra's tough. That's tough. I think I would probably have him at 5 as of today. But nonetheless, right in that area, I think it's money. I think the ADP for Marvin is 100% worth it. He's probably the most excited I've been for a wide receiver since Jamar. Yeah, thank you. Comment comes in. Keep trade cut. Hey, hands up. I know. I don't like it either. I don't know why it's on my screen, on my stream, but it's here.
Sam, you know why we use this. Again, it's not a tool that we use, but it is a universal ranking system for the fantasy industry, fantasy community. It is a ranking system that everybody has input in. If you notice, there's a question that comes up every time you log in. It's the most universal one, and it's free to the public. So this is why it's on the screen tonight. It's nothing crazy. Again, if we pulled our rankings up, things would be a little different.
Yeah.
But let's bring in some of these comments too.
Yeah.
So we have no weapons for the Chargers. Absolutely. Ryan talks about it. We're going through a culture change for the Los Angeles Chargers here. Okay. A lot of cap casualties. You had Khalil Mack. You had Joey Bosa. You had Mike Williams. You had Keenan Allen. The team that was in huge cap casualty just signed Justin Herbert long term.
Yeah.
Eckler, Rashawn Slater has to be re-signed here soon as well. His right tackle just drafted Joe Alt. The culture is changing here. I do not see Ladd McConkey being the wide receiver one for long.
Right.
I'm not a big fan of Quentin Johnson as it is, but Ladd McConkey to me will earn wide receiver one snaps, targets, and snap percentages and shares. I'm just not a fan of what they have overall. But with an effective ground game, you can kind of disguise things a little bit. I think Herbert's going to be okay.
Yeah, I think it'll be just fine. This year might be a down year, but I think in the run, he's got a long career ahead of him.
Herbert fall in the mid-seconds. Scoop it up wherever you can. Easy buy.
Easy buy.
So Marvin Harrison Jr., as I say this, early to mid-second seconds in startups. Fair. Warranted.
Yeah.
A very elite wide receiver prospect. It's very, very hard to go down and rank them. I mean, you got Calvin Johnson, Julio Jones. You got a lot of great first-round wide receivers. Amari Cooper being another one as well, one of the best I've ever seen in college. But
yeah,
I can't get behind the fact of Marvin Harrison Jr. ahead of Amon St. Brown in this aspect. I've seen Amon St. Brown. Now we're talking about fourth-round draft capital. I get it. I get the story behind Amon St. Brown. But Amon St. Brown is an absolute animal, guys. I just want to say that. So I do have Marvin Harrison Jr. at 5. So what are you looking to get if you're to trade Marvin Harrison?
If I'm being 100% honest with you, I would probably be more willing to move off of the 101 for value compared to moving Marvin Harrison. That being said, if you're in a rough spot for a quarterback, I wouldn't be mad at you if you went and got. See, it's so tough. I'm a huge Harrison guy, but I wouldn't be too mad if you got Kyler plus or Jordan Love plus from Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm trying to draw up a trade with my head. I'm not.
I'll throw you a trade
cut. I refuse
I'll
to
throw you a
trade cut.
I'll throw you a trade. Would you rather have Marvin Harrison Jr. or would you rather have Brock Purdy and a combination of Xavier Worthy or Brian Thomas Jr. in this class?
I'll probably hold Marvin. You said for Purdy, right?
Purdy and Xavier Worthy.
Yeah, I'll hold Marvin in that situation. I get Purdy. You know, he's probably. I'm not looking at the screen right now. What's his QB rank right now? Nonetheless, I think
14.
he's a little bit inflated. I think he's kind of a game manager. He came off a huge season. I kind of expect him to fall off a little bit from here on out. But for me, it's Marvin Harrison all day in that situation. Now, you tell me I can go get Brock Purdy and maybe like Waddle or Devontae Smith or Drake London or something like that. Maybe get a little bit closer, but I don't want to take the chance on Worthy or Brian Thomas Jr. who have never stepped foot on a field yet. I get that taking chances as a rookie to a certain extent is good for your dynasty roster, but if I'm moving off of a guaranteed talent in Marvin Harrison Jr., I need to be paid for it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So would you accept 2 2025 first and a 2025 second?
That's a whole lot of. We just talked about this 2025 class. I can't lie. I'd be really tempted with that, to be honest with you. I think I might end up taking the pick package there and just wait a season. I mean, you figure if worse comes to worse, quarterbacks always shoot up every year. If you can end up with the high-end pick with Luther Burden and then 2 picks past that for Marvin Harrison, I think you're doing great. Yeah, it has to be the pick.
I agree.
Yeah.
Has to be the picks. I agree. So as we transition here to the next prospect, this is where people get dicey. A lot of the rushing upside plays a factor into Jaden Daniels' value, and as rightfully so, it should. Again, I ask you this question because I ask you this question with most of the elite running prospects that come into the game. Anthony Richardson is a completely different story. He's one of the most athletic dudes at a 6'5", 250-pound build. He's built for the contact. So this is why this is different for me. Jaden Daniels a little bit of a thinner frame. I know he has the typical size at 6'4", but at 215, he's a little bit of a thinner side QB here.
Yeah.
So Jaden Daniels comes in here at QB 12. Actually, not bad for what I thought it would be. Jaden Daniels here, not a terrible spot. Probably back end second, maybe early third, depending on how it falls. So let's talk about it. Jaden Daniels has to be playing with one of the worst offensive lines in football. 96 sacks allowed last year in Washington. Feel really bad for Sam Howell. He had a rough stretch of it, but his weapons aren't bad. You got Terry McLaurin. You have Jahan Dotson. You just drafted Ben Sinnott. You got Brian Robinson, and you have Austin Eckler. And you just drafted Luke McCaffrey.
Yeah.
It's a lot better of a situation. It's a lot better of a situation than Drake May is currently in himself.
I mean, that's completely fair. I won't disagree with you on that one. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the Commander situation is a whole lot better. You have Terry McLaurin and then Austin Eckler. Jahan, So we'll see what he can do. You said the offensive line is huge. He does have the ability to get outside of the pocket. But for him, I think it's really important for him to get his feet wet in the pocket, get some throws in, and not be under so much pressure. I think it's going to hurt him in his first year until they can get some protection for him. So I think he's a guy that needs to get in the pocket and throw the ball. We know for a fact that he can run the ball. That is no secret. He is an absolute animal with the ball in his hands. But he's not going to be able to rely on that in the NFL like he did in college. It's going to be a little bit of a tough transition for him. QB 12, I think, is not really that bad. ADP is going in the back end of the third in startups. Obviously, we're talking 103, 104 here in rookie drafts. I think that sounds about right for him. The big question that I'll ask you, though, with Jaden Daniels, we just saw Justin Fields not get his second contract. Do you think that Jaden Daniels has what it takes to earn the second contract and not just be a flyer quarterback for 4 years, I guess?
I'm going to be honest with you. This question is all going to come down to game processing ability. Jaden Daniels is going to be thrown in a situation where he is going to have to process the field quick. And if he doesn't, he's going to get hurt. It's going to be ugly. This offensive line is really bad. I know he can extend and he can escape and he can make plays with his legs. But again, if you don't see the field breakdown and the process of the field breakdown, there's going to be plays where Jaden Daniels can get seriously hurt. Right. It's going to come to development. It really is. What can Washington do to put things around for this kid to succeed? How quick is he going to get the ball out of his hands? How good is he going to be in his drops? Is he going to play mostly under shotgun? How are they going to scheme for Jaden Daniels to play? That's my main question for Jaden Daniels. I do think he's talented. I really do. But I said the same thing about Fields coming out of Ohio State. Fields showed a lot of promise at Ohio State, especially in the Clemson game. We can all go back and recall the Clemson game, and I thought, wow, these are some NFL caliber throws that are on this field right now. And I've seen the same from Jaden. You know, I mean, SEC lights shine brightest. But that's all due to development. That question has yet to be determined.
Yeah, it's tough. We'll see how he does. Is Terry McLaurin a number one to you guys? To me, I think he's still in one. He's getting up in age there. He's 28 now. I think he's going to be 29 in season. But nonetheless, he's drawn about 130 targets a season. I think he is the Commander's one, whether we like it or not. He's got solid hands. He's not afraid to go up and get the ball and sacrifice his body. I think he's a one. Now, is he a back end one as far as wide receiver ones go? Sure, but I think he sits nice and fine on this roster as their wide receiver one.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I agree with this. He's not a one for fantasy. That relevancy is not there. He does draw wide
that's the question.
Targets.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like Daniels. The Commander should have hired Ben Johnson, help young QB's development. Yeah, Ben Johnson was a very highly sought after commodity here, and Ben Johnson decided to stay in Detroit. I can't be mad at the guy. Loves the situation, loves the team he coaches. Can't be mad at that. So, Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels is ahead of Trevor Lawrence, Brock Purdy.
Yeah, I can't. Don't love that.
Dak. Who one spot behind Kyler, who I also think Kyler is highly. Let's do this. You need a QB. Would you trade Brees Hall for Jaden Daniels?
How badly do I need a QB?
You need a QB. Superflex league, man. This is what we play. This is the notion of the fantasy community right now.
Assuming that somehow, some way, I actually am in one league that I have Brees and my QB2 is a Russell Wilson or Daniel Jones type player. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's something you have to consider. The rushing upside alone is going to make him fantasy relevant. Whether he throws for a ton of ball or throws for a ton of yards, he can run for a ton. I think he profiles this guy that honestly, and shoot me for this, I think he could end up being a top 15 quarterback this season if the pocket doesn't absolutely collapse on him 8, 9, 10 times a game like they did last year with Drake May. But yeah, I'd probably trade Brees.
You would trade Brees for him?
Yeah. My thing is
fair enough.
I guess mine for you, because the rankings that I have in front of me, are you taking? I don't know what Keep Trade Cut says. I don't know where the rankings are at. It's really small on my screen, but straight up and down, would you take Puka or are you going Jaden Daniels?
I'm going to go Jaden.
Jaden?
I'm going to go Jaden. And that's saying something for me. That's saying something for me.
Well, you kind of came out as not such a big fan of Jaden Daniels in the past, so I'm surprised to hear you say that. But
yep,
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Yep. I've we come to our ways, or we come to our senses every once in a while.
Yeah. Came full circle on me.
Now, my favorite player to talk about coming in at number 9. Mr. Malik Neighbors, 25 overall for the player Raider. Welcome to the New York Giants, Malik Neighbors.
Go Giants.
So, wide receiver 9 for a stud like this, is it warranted?
Given the situation, as of right now, I'm actually more on the no side. I mean, he's already a top 10 wide receiver with Daniel Jones as his quarterback. And I get Dynasty's the long game, but realistically speaking, how long is it going to take for Giants to get their franchise quarterback to be able to get Malik Neighbors the ball? I mean, you look at next year's quarterback class, we're looking at Connor Wegman. That's the only one I can think off the top of my head right now. I'm kind of blanking on the rest.
Quinn Ewers, Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, like these guys
Carson
are.
Beck.
Carson Beck seems like a guy the Giants would draft 100%. I wouldn't love that, but nonetheless, I think the situation's tough, man. I mean, can he get 110, 120 targets this season? Sure he can. But how many of those are going to be catchable? And how many touchdowns is he going to get in this offense that struggles? Trust me, I'm a Giants fan. I see it last year. Struggles to get over the 50-yard line to even get into the red zone in the first place. He's in a tough situation, and I do not think as of now that he's warranted as a top 10 Dynasty receiver. Given I love the talent, the situation is just rough.
So my question to you is, as a Giants fan, Brian Daboll, pretty good at scheming, pretty good coach here. You guys got a good one here. Malik Neighbors, biggest skill set is being able to take something in the short to intermediate area and make something happen with the ball in his hands. I do think it's going to come down to the ability for Brian Daboll to be creative and how he gets Malik Neighbors the ball. Malik Neighbors is a big play waiting to happen. One of the most explosive receivers in this class after the catch. Obviously, he's not
Absolutely.
Malachi Corley with the Yak King. We get that, but Malik Neighbors is something special, man. And you guys got a good wide receiver. So Malik
Yeah.
Neighbors to me is in my top 10. I do have Malik Neighbors top 10, and I have him firmly top 10. I am just such a big fan of Malik Neighbors. We all know how close these two are as the 1 and 2 with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors from a talent perspective. I know the landing spots have played a big role in how we talk about these wide receivers, but from a pure talent perspective, they're not far at all.
Sure.
So my question to you is, you ask me the trade question because I am a Malik Neighbors guy. I'm probably pulling the trigger regardless.
You're the Neighbors guy. Yeah, that's 100% fair. So let's say you own. I'm assuming you're probably if you own the 104, you're probably going Malik Neighbors. No.
The 104, yeah, I'm taking Malik Neighbors at the 103.
So would you go? And you kind of asked me the same question last time with Worthy and Brian Thomas Jr. But if someone offered you a guy like Brandon Ayuk and like the 2-1, are you taking that, or are you going to hold strong on Malik Neighbors?
No, give me Malik Neighbors.
Okay. See, I'd say that because I probably tend to lean the Ayuk side on that one. Say what you want. It might give me kill a little bit, but it's going to be tough. I think it might take a couple of seasons before we see Malik Neighbors actually get into what he can be. And trust me and Steven are huge Neighbors guys. I just see this offense, and it's rough, man. It's
Big
really,
fan.
really rough.
Big fan.
I think he's
One of the most
capped
talented
on
wide
what he's
receivers.
capable of.
Yes, one of the most talented wide receivers we've seen in quite some time, especially after the catch. A lot of people say Odell Beckham-esque. Yes, I see it. I do. A lot of people like to use the LSU comparison, but I see a lot different in certain aspects. Malik Neighbors is just one of those wide receivers that I am in love with the tape, the analytics, all of it. I will acquire him wherever I can.
Yeah. Jim's
Tons
got
of
a
value
good
in
point here
for
with his
Neighbors.
next comment, honestly.
Even if Daniel Jones sucks, I don't see a scenario where Neighbors' peripherals are bad, but even his raw numbers are, even if his all were. Yeah, I agree with this. But in the realm of possibilities, there's a lot of questions that go around. Can Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors both be 1,000-yard wide receivers as rookies? Yes. Yes, they can.
Yeah.
And people are talking about 110, 120 targets for Malik Neighbors. I look at the wide receiver room, and I look at Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson, Allen Robinson, a new addition signing today, Devin Singletary.
Don't remind me.
Daniel Bellinger, Theo Johnson, who I love. Great pick. Love Theo Johnson. But do you see anyone in this room that is going to demand a target share of 20+% other than Malik Neighbors?
No, absolutely not. He's the one, no doubt. And like I said, he can be the target hog. It's just the touchdowns concern me. That's huge into the fantasy world.
Sure.
I get value. You know, you're drafting him because he's a young guy. He can stay on your roster for years to come. He can develop into the league. But realistically speaking, can he crack the top 15 receivers this year?
I think Marvin Harrison Jr. will. Malik Neighbors, top 15. I'm going to say no, but top 20 is not out of the question.
Right. So it's 20 to 15 range, and you're getting him at the
15,
wide receiver 9.
15 to 20 gives me a little bit of a gap to play with. I got a little bit of a gap.
That's fair. But nonetheless, he worries me a little bit. And I'm not going to be eager to just pawn him off to the highest bidder or anything, but I'm a little bit hesitant.
Yeah. Another good point here.
Yeah.
They said the Giants will have a lot of negative game scripts.
Right.
Do you talked about the some defensive upgrades too. I mean, you guys haven't had a bad signings for the defense over there as well.
No.
But either way, we have at 5. I still can't believe Drake May has fallen past this, but we have Roma Dunze.
Yeah, it surprised me. May's Patriots landing spot is absolutely killing him. It's bad.
So we have Roman Dunze coming in at wide receiver 15 here, in the same range as Jalen Waddle, Brandon Ayuk, Devontae Smith, Michael Pittman, Nico Collins, DJ Moore. DJ Moore heavily underrated at wide receiver 19, by the way. So, Roman Dunze. As we jump into the Roman Dunze case, we talk about a guy who you and I saw as a great prospect.
Absolutely.
Great prospect. The situation for Roman Dunze is a short-term situation where I think you need to be patient. We have preached this. Patience is key with Roman Dunze due to the fact of the veterans that are on the Chicago Bears roster. They have earned their opportunities. They've earned their looks. They've earned their targets. And I think 2025 is where we'll really see Roman Dunze's value shoot back up.
Yeah.
But at wide receiver 15, Roman Dunze's value is bound to fall going into 2024 into 2025.
Yeah, we talked about it before on a podcast, but I'll say it again, is you have DJ Moore, who's averaging about 135 targets the last 5 years, and Keenan Allen, who's at 150. Now, sure, he's in the Bears now. He's no longer with Justin Herbert, so you might see that number come down. But these are two guys that absolutely demand targets in the offense. Two proven vets in the league. And not to touch on it, you still have Cole Kmet, given Roman Dunze would no doubt have more targets than Cole Kmet. But Cole Kmet's still a big part of this offense, and they showed that last year. So production comes to mind for me with Roman Dunze's rookie season. I don't expect it to be like mind-blowing or anything like that. It will probably be similar to like a JSN type season for Roman Dunze, but he can definitely bounce back. Keenan Allen gone. He's only on a 1-year deal, so he'll be out the door next year. So, like I said, we preach this, preach. Dynasty is the long game. You have to wait out Keenan Allen, and if Caleb Williams is who he's supposed to be, you're solid as a rock.
Yeah. So looking at this here, I know for a fact I'm not trading Jalen Waddle or Brandon Ayuk for Roman Dunze. Not trading Devontae Smith currently. Pittman, let's just say this. It's close for me, although I do really like Pittman's situation right now. I'm probably trading Pittman for Roman Dunze. That's just where I'm at with it. I think that's where the line crosses. I am not trading Roman Dunze for Nico Collins. DJ Moore, you're kind of pinning yourself against each other, trading one Bears wide receiver for another Bears wide receiver. Let's see how you got to see how the target shares are going to play out with Keenan Allen. But Jordan Addison, I'm keeping Roman Dunze over Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers. So the question is, Roman Dunze, if you trade for him now, you're trading for an inflated value. Are you waiting to trade for him until 2025 season starts, like the Dynasty season starts?
Yeah, I think you can see a lot of people panic even in season, and especially if you're a rebuilding roster. If he's off to a rough start, right now he's a wide receiver 15. And I think he can get back to that at some point in his career. But the Dynasty community is not as patient as it should be. He will go from 15 down to 20, 25 in no time. You get to week 8, and he's only averaging 4 or 5 targets a game. People are going to be looking to get him out. I'm not buying a Dunze right now, but in the middle of the season, 2025 off season, 100% go get Roman Dunze. Right now, I think his value is a little bit inflated.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So with Roman Dunze, my last question is there a situation where landing spot will play deterrent in the fact that you would rather have Worthy over Dunze?
No.
So Rome solid wide receiver 3. Locked in wide receiver 3. That's it.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I'm just asking.
Sure, Worthy has the ceiling to go above Roman Dunze, but I'd be willing to bet on the X receiver, the prototypical X receiver over burn the defense type of guy. Like, given that's Tyreek Hill has worked out, but outside of that, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, outside of that, it's kind of rough for these fast receivers.
Got Yeah, I'm on the same boat here. Roman Dunes at 3.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some Drake May here too. Drake May, we finally get to talk about Drake May. Drake May being below Jaden Daniels here, obviously. So Drake May comes in at QB 15. I'll be honest with you, that's probably right. Just for how bad the landing spot is, and a lot of people hate the landing spot. A lot of people just aren't in love with him going to New England, obviously, and it's rough. It's rough.
Not coming into a great situation. I mean, the whole culture for the Patriots is going from Bill Belichick and Tom Brady to Mac Jones and Bill Belichick, and now Belichick's gone. You go into a whole new regime with Drake May. And I think that scares a lot of people, and rightfully so. Their wide receiver 1 and 2, they just drafted this year, Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. They have Juju still rostered, I believe. Outside of that, they don't have a whole lot of weapons.
Mario Douglas.
Yeah, sorry, Demario Douglas. How could I forget about him? But, I mean, you do have a pretty solid running back there in Ramondre Stevenson. But I digress. Not a great situation for Drake May. We're two guys that actually maybe a little bit higher than consensus on Drake May. I know. But I guess for me, Steven, the people that don't like Drake May point a lot to his release time or outside the pocket passing is a little shady here and there. But that being said, do you listen to that, or do you think it's something that he can kind of work out as he goes into the league?
So when you talk about the people who refer to his throwing on the move, Drake May has a PFF grade from 2022 and 2023 as a top 5 QB when throwing on the run.
Yeah.
He has a over 90 PFF grade in that area. So I look at those people, ask the question. I just wonder what they see when they say he can't throw on the move at times. Drake May is one of the best throwers on the move in this class. Drake May is a talent that you just get to watch. Yes, the throwing motion is a little slow and at times, but we've seen people adapt. We've seen people overcome. Philip Rivers has one of the slowest throwing motions I've ever seen. And Philip Rivers is top 10 all time in completions, passing yards, touchdowns. I know he's had a lot of great teams he's played around, but there's no way that people should be writing off Drake May before we even see him in the NFL. I don't think that's fair. It's the same thing. Bryce Young had the 2024 write-off after an awful rookie season. And it's the same script here. People are writing off Drake May before we even play a down of football.
Yeah, and it's great. Well, I kind of talked about it, the Dynasty community being very reactive, and you see it here with Drake May, who I think was above Jaden Daniels for a good bit of the offseason. And then you get the draft capital. He goes to the Commanders, and people love looking at that upside, rushing. You hate to see it. I think, honestly, I don't think he's fallen too far, though. I think quarterback 15 is probably about where he needs to be honest with you. So I think the community's actually got the value correct on him. So maybe they're not too reactive, but it's another one of those things. Patience. This is their franchise guy. We've talked about it in the past. But you had 2 calls to move up for that pick that had some pretty significant value if they wanted to move back with the Vikings and the Giants, and they stayed put. They got their future franchise quarterback, and they're ready to roll. I think you build from him from here.
Yeah. So Drake May in the same range as Lawrence, Purdy himself, Tua, Dak. I'll be honest with you. I'm still taking Lawrence Purdy over Drake May. I'm still taking Tua, Dak over Drake May. Then we get to J.J. McCarthy, Jared Goff, Bryce Young. It's a weird tier here. I'll be honest with you. I'm going to take Drake May over Jared Goff. I do think the Bryce Young hate is not warranted. I do see a situation where Bryce Young can step up and show everyone who the real Bryce Young is in 2024. So in that aspect, I think Drake May and Bryce Young are a lot closer than what some people may suggest. So would you rather have in the trade, Drake May or Bryce Young?
It's a pretty loaded question, I'll be honest with you. you look at it as Drake May is the QB3 this year. And we get it wrong all the time. CJ Stroud's 100% QB1 last year, but the community had Bryce Young as QB1. He had an absolutely abysmal season with the Panthers. It was rough. Honestly, it was. But he didn't have much. He had an old Adam Thielen. Now, he was productive. Adam Thielen was productive somehow last season. But Jonathan Mingo, not much of a run game to help him out. That's really, really close for me. I think they're kind of in the same situation as far as like potential versus what's around them. Based off what I saw, I think I might lean Drake May, if I'm being honest with you.
Okay.
Steve, you still on the whole Bryce Young train?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm also a big
Some
Bryce
notable
Young
improvements to that offense, I will say. But
big Bryce Young fan.
Yeah.
Huge Bryce Young fan. So, but I do think that Drake May, again, very talented quarterback, one of my QB2 in this class, has been for forever now.
Yeah. I want to say it, but you know.
Now, I want to be honest with you. As we transition to the tight end position, this will be the only time we talk about tight ends until we cover the end of the second round, third round, and that's about it. And because there's a huge drop off in this tight end class. Brock Bowers comes in at Dynasty, tight end 3 behind Sam Laporta, Trey McBride, very close with Dalton Kincaid as well. Kyle Pitts, TJ Hawkinson, Mark Andrews in that range. I'm going to be honest with you. The landing spot has put Brock Bowers at Dynasty tight end 3. The landing spot, not the talent. Brock Bowers, again, is one of the most talented tight ends that we've ever had the privilege to watch in college football.
Yeah. Well, no doubt. Yeah. I mean, a bigger prospect, at least to me, than Kyle Pitts was. I think you mentioned a few times, I think probably the biggest since Vernon Davis.
Vernon Davis, Eric Ebron, guys like that, Noah Fant, TJ, Pitts.
TJ's another good one, Kittle, Kelsey, but Kelsey wasn't really sought after like some of these other guys were. But tight end 3, I mean, he's already ahead of Kincaid, ahead of TJ, given he's got some injury issues right now, and ahead of Kyle Pitts. Do you think that's warranted despite the snap? Not playing a snap yet?
Yep.
Yeah. All in. All in.
All in, man. How many tight ends can you honestly say that have had multiple 90 PFF receiving grades? Comes in as a freshman with 800 plus yards, 13 touchdowns, continued the success all the way through, had injuries his junior year, which really took away from a really special season that was happening up until that point.
Yeah.
Brock Bowers, when the lights were on, they shine brightest, man. Like I said, the SEC lights shine brightest. Brock Bowers destroyed the SEC from the minute he came into college football. He is one of the most polarizing tight end prospects we've ever seen. I don't care that he didn't test. You can watch the tape and just know what you get.
Totally fair with him, to be honest with you. One of a few guys that didn't test that I didn't mind. Like him and Marvin Harrison didn't test. I had no problem with that.
How do we feel about Mayer now? Can they utilize 2 tight ends? That's a great question. I actually like this question. So here's where I think Mayer's usage is going to come into effect. I think Mayer's going to be more of a on-the-line, line of scrimmage tight end, inline blocker, some rub routes off the line of scrimmage, some little shallow crossers, things like that. Meanwhile, I think Brock Bowers is a oversized slot wide receiver. That's what Brock Bowers' utilization is going to be. I don't see Brock Bowers playing towards the line of scrimmage much, even though he's not a terrible blocker. Brock Bowers is just a mismatch waiting to happen. And I'm waiting to see who wins this QB battle because with Gardner Minshew's 7.6 career ADOT, he fits Brock Bowers' specialty. Yeah. He really could make Brock Bowers shine.
There's no doubt in my mind that with Gardner Minshew at quarterback, if he wins the battle over Aiden, which I kind of expect him to, but I won't project my own opinions. So let's just say that Gardner Minshew wins the job. There's no secret he loves his tight ends. There's no secret. He just does. I get the landing spot's not great for him, given there's no elite quarterback in town for Oakland. Or, excuse me, Las Vegas. I apologize. But I'm not really worried about Brock Bowers. Now, could we be looking at another Kyle Pitts situation where you're not going to get that production that you want right out the gate? Maybe. But that being said, as disappointing as we've been in Kyle Pitts, he still got over 1,000 yards this rookie season. So
Yeah,
I think we can get Brock Bowers.
Like-
but as far as answering the question between Mayer and Brock Bowers, I think as far as dynasty or fantasy football value, I think you're going to see Mayer out the door. Now, can they utilize two in football as far as like a team aspect? Absolutely. But I don't think he's going to be able to hold value as someone you can look at. Even when you have a tight end on a bye, I wouldn't feel comfortable starting Mayer at tight end too whatsoever.
Nope.
Yeah.
But Brock Bowers is my tight end too. Trey McBride, I do love the offense that he's in. I do think the Cardinals are a offense waiting to click and waiting to boom. They have a lot of exciting pieces that are going to be playing in the desert. So I do like Trey McBride. I think Brock Bowers is in an awkward landing spot. Like I said, I want to see who wins the QB battle between him and Aiden O'Connell. Brock Bowers, another guy who I think long-term is going to be a security blanket for whoever plays quarterback in Las Vegas. We all know Devontae Adams is on the wrong side of 30. Jacoby Myers, another solid piece, but he's not a generational offensive weapon like Brock Bowers is. I don't mind the landing spot. I think it's awkward at first. I don't think it raises a lot of excitement for you guys or for anybody, but I don't think any landing spot is going to be a terrible landing spot for a generational talent.
Yeah. Sure. I agree. That being said, yeah, trade for me for Bowers because I've been kind of drawing him up before and during this podcast, and he's kind of tough to value. Let's just say it's no tight end premium. Where are we at with Brock Bowers as far as value goes? Are you taking? I just used Ayuk, so I won't use Ayuk again. But like a Devonta Smith or Brock Bowers, who are we going with there?
See, the tight end landscape's changed. When you had the 3 elite tight ends and you had to have one to gain positional advantage, those things don't exist anymore. There's some tight ends in the league that are really coming to play here.
Yeah.
So with Devontae Smith, no tight end premium, I think I lean Devontae Smith.
Okay. I'm just seeing
it's close.
Where your head's at.
It's close. I think I lean Devontae Smith.
Now, I guess the big question is here. If you have your tight end and you roster a Kincaid or a Kyle Pitts or TJ Hawkinson, I know he's an injury trouble, but he's still a viable tight end. Would you be willing to trade the Bowers pick for a pick in 2025? Or are you just taking the Brock Bowers talent and trying to move off your other tight end?
So as I look down the tight end board, Mark Andrews is tight end 7. If I got to trade Brock Bowers to acquire Mark Andrews plus, yes, sign me up.
Okay.
That range right there between Kincaid, Pitts, Hawk, Andrews. Andrews obviously been my favorite. Andrews is my most owned tight end in my dynasty leagues. He's the easiest target to go get in this range for me. Obviously, people will want the youth, and I do believe that a big season is coming for Dalton Kincaid. So I do think the whole community also believes that as well. So Dalton Kincaid is a piece I don't see you acquiring much additional capital for. TJ Hawkinson is that guy. Injured right now. TJ Hawkinson is the guy you're going to acquire the most capital plus for Brock Bowers. Great piece to add. My favorite here being Mark Andrews. I'm just a big Mark Andrews fan and how him and Lamar click. He's Lamar's number one guy. I'm just a big fan of how they utilize him in Baltimore. So he'd be the tight end I go after, but I think Hawkinson makes the most sense.
Fair. All right, we got 2 left here. Who is the consensus 109 as of right now?
We're at 108. We have J.J. McCarthy.
Oh, jeez. I'm sorry. I don't know how to forget about J.J. McCarthy, who arguably
QB
has
18. QB 18 for us, though. He is behind Tua, Dak, Drake, Purdy, Lawrence, right up there with Jared Goff, Bryce Young, Will Levis. So, JJ McCarthy. I voted the question to you the other day. JJ McCarthy's landing spot is just as good, if not better, than Caleb Williams.
Yeah, tough call. I mean, obviously you have the best receiver.
Right.
Or you have the best receiver in the league, Justin Jefferson. I don't think that's up for debate. You guys out there can roast me for it, but to me, best receiver in the league, no doubt. You still have Jordan Addison, who's an ascending talent. And then TJ Hawkinson's on the way back eventually. You have all the weapons in the world. I think that JJ McCarthy kind of profiles as a game manager, kind of like a Brock Purdy type quarterback, where he's going to do what he's asked, play the ball safe, get the ball downfield, make some safe throws here and there, and just get the job done. I think that's all the Vikings really need him to do, especially with the talent they have on this offense. I think that as far, you said what, QB 18, is he ahead or below Jared Goff?
He is ahead of Jared Goff.
I'll maybe argue
by one spot.
Jared Goff and Bryce Young being over him, maybe. Well, I take it back. Jared Goff. I'll stand that I'm kind of out on Bryce Young right now. But he comes into a fantastic situation. I mean, what do you really expect at JJ McCarthy year one?
Me?
Yeah.
I know we're going to be calling for JJ McCarthy to start in Minnesota probably by week 4 to week 7. I know Sam Darnold doesn't excite anybody in the fantasy community. I get it. We saw lightning in a bottle strike last year when Kirk Cousins went down. Josh Dobbs had a couple great starts, and then it just went down from there. Nick Mullins had a start or two that was good, then it wasn't. You know what I mean? Things happen. You drafted this guy to be your franchise guy. If you feel like he's not ready, you don't have to rush him. You really don't. Sam Darnold's on a very, very cheap deal. It's nothing great. Justin Jefferson said they wanted the pieces in place for a long-term run. They wanted a quarterback to build around. J.J. McCarthy was the guy that they chose to take. So I think J.J. McCarthy is in a great spot of success here. I do really like the situation, like you said. QB 18, I think, is warranted for J.J. McCarthy. I think this is a guy that if he plays to his skill sets and his strengths, he plays the way he played in Michigan. Very solid quarterback. I know it was very limited tape for us to go through. But if he plays outside the pocket like he did, he was one of the best QBs outside the pocket in the class as well. Beautiful outside the pocket. He can elude. He can evade. He's got sneaky athleticism that people don't talk about. And he can move. And he's got heart, man. He's got a lot of heart. He's a good leader. You can see the way he led his team in Michigan. I'm just a big fan of this kid.
Yeah. I'm a big J.J. McCarthy guy, too. That being said, I don't want to fester too much. We're going to start rolling through these guys. But as far as trade value goes, we're getting towards the back end of the first round here. Are you still willing to move out of the JJ pick, or is this a guy that you're sitting at the 106, 107, just ready to hit smash on the draft?
Well, I'm not taking him 106, 107. I do think he's the 108. I do
108. Yeah,
I do believe that the skill position guys deserve to go from the one with the 3 QBs that we mentioned previously. They do deserve to go 1 through 7. JJ is my 108 here, and he starts the next tier for me. When I wrote through my rookie rankings, he started the tier of upside potential.
Yeah,
and that's just where I'm at with JJ. I think he has some growing to do in certain areas of his game, but I do think that he has elite upside potential if everything works out right. So where I'm at with JJ, I'm willing to trade out of the pick. I am. I would take, for the JJ McCarthy, for that pick right there, I would take a top 4 2025 pick.
Yeah,
I know it's nothing guaranteed. Yeah. But at the same time, if you have a projected pick that's looking to be top 5, I'll take it.
Yeah, 100%. I have no problem with that whatsoever. Just because the positional talent next year is absolutely insane. As far as positional players go, at least in like the values that I have in front of me, he's around the same area as like a Travis Etienne or a Jonathan Taylor or Jalen Waddle. Like,
oh man, you can't
I don't
bring
know
up
where
Waddle.
he's at and keep trade cut, but I mean,
You
these are
can't
guys.
bring up Jalen. You can't bring up Jalen Waddle to me. That's not fair. It's Jalen
Yeah, but I'm
Waddle.
saying that's realistically how high he's valued at in these dynasty leagues. Is like he's above some of these elite positional talents, and I think
I would
if a guy
trade.
really wants a quarterback,
I will tell
I'm
you
probably
this. I will tell you this. I'll trade the running back for the quarterback. I will trade my running backs for a QB. Again,
okay.
running backs aren't the way I like to build my team anyway. I don't think they're the long-term
Build a
fantasy
receiver.
position that you want to build around anyway. And again, you brought up Jonathan Taylor, Travis Etienne. I'm not going to get into their injury history, but that's for another story. But Jalen Waddle, no, I will not trade Jalen Waddle.
Okay, fair enough. So the running backs, no problem. ETN,
Yeah. I only think there's three
Taylor.
running backs that are 100% worth holding in at the position. Obviously, Bijan, Brees Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs. Yeah, that's it. I know ETN and then Bode running back one upside, top 30 player rater potential. I know we've seen Jonathan Taylor go over, 1,800 and just had a monster seasons. I get it. But I just don't think long-term running back position is the way to build your fantasy teams anymore.
Yeah, it's not. It took me how long to convince you that? We're getting into an episode on how we tend to build our dynasty teams. I think that would be a really cool episode to do in the future. But we always say, and I've said for years now, in dynasty, build through receivers, quarterbacks, and then worry about your running backs. Even tight end before running backs. They're the last thing I've honestly seen teams succeed without having running backs because you can just wait for a guy to get hurt and then go pick up the backup off the waiver and then just ride him for a couple of weeks, sneak in a few dubs, and be successful with your dominant receivers or your quarterbacks. I've said it a million times, and I'll say it again. I'm not big on running backs outside of Gibbs, Bijan, Brees Hall.
Yeah, I would like to throw Christian McCaffrey in there, but obviously we're talking about short-term value as opposed to a long-term value.
I mean, you can 100% argue CMC. He's undoubtedly probably still the 101 in redrafts, 1 QB. But man, he's just getting up there in age. As far as dynasty goes, I don't feel comfortable putting him in that range.
Yes. Who do you value higher, Mayer or Bowers? Bowers.
I don't even think it's relatively even close to being a conversation. I mean, there's no stupid questions in this world, but
Bowers is. I've always said Vernon Davis is the best tight end I've ever seen in college football, and now that answer has changed to Brock Bowers. And I was a big Vernon Davis fan. Loved him at the University of Maryland. So that was like my landscape of what I compared tight ends to when it comes to college football. And man, yeah, Brock Bowers is something special. Oh, Jeremy Shockey too. Also loved him at the
Miami, baby. Go Giants.
So Xavier Worthy, this is one of my favorite wide receivers to talk about now. Slid to the back end of the first round. Pick 28 to the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a pick that really, really pops, really brings out a lot of excitement when it comes to the fantasy community, especially with, like we talked about previously this week, the Rashee Rice incident just seems to keep getting worse and worse for him. And we're talking about probably 8 to 10 game suspension, if not the whole season, depending on how this all plays out. It doesn't look good. Rashee Rice, it looked like he was going to, get let off a little easier with the car accident. But now that we have this next situation, I don't know how it plays out. You have Hollywood Brown on a 1-year deal. Travis Kelce just signed a 2-year deal. Long-term, I don't think past 2025, Travis Kelce is going to be playing football anymore. I do think Xavier Worthy is a long-term piece to own of any of the offensive pieces you want for the Kansas City Chiefs. We know how special Patrick Mahomes is. And we also talked about how the ADOT for Pat Mahomes consistently dropped after the Tyreek Hill trade. and I expect this trend to not continue.
Yeah, so let's just not talk about what's around him on the team. Let's talk about the player in himself. You're talking about a guy that broke out with elite competition as a freshman at 5'10", 165. A lot of people are worried about that. The size, the height. Sure, absolutely. It does raise questions, but he's done it in college at a successful rate and level despite having a great quarterback. His hips are absolutely amazing. Dude's a speed demon. His routes are a lot crisper than people give him credit for. This opens up a world for Patrick Mahomes, and you mentioned him sliding in this draft, but I think he slid in the best way possible for him in fantasy. The Bills allow the Chiefs to trade up and go get their guy. This is a guy that's been linked to Patrick Mahomes. This is a guy that Patrick Mahomes has wanted this whole offseason. I think they 100% have a plan for him. And if we're talking as far as value goes, I think this might be the highest ceiling a player has had out of the 1-9 spot in a while.
Sure. So with Xavier Worthy, it's just one of those guys that I'm trying to grab everywhere. I've been trying to acquire anywhere from picks 8 to 10 in my drafts. Obviously, in your draft, I'm loaded with draft picks, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But when it comes to this range of wide receiver, you got Pickens, you got Coleman, you got McConkey, you got Brian Thomas Jr., Worthy, and Jigba, T. Higgins, Tank Dell, DK, Zay Flowers. There's a possibility where we're talking about Xavier Worthy as a top 15 dynasty piece next year.
Yeah, it's kind of something I was going to ask you. We have him. I don't have it in front of me where Xavier Worthy's ranked as far as receivers go. I can almost see it on your tiny little screen, but nonetheless, 26. Wide receiver 26. What do you think the chances? We have Odunze sitting at wide receiver 15 right now. Do you think going into the 2025 season, we have Xavier Worthy as consensus over Rome Odunze?
I'm going to say it's a possibility, but I don't think it's a smart thing.
Yeah, fair.
Now, granted,
that's what I talk about floor versus ceiling for some of these rookies.
I think Rome Odunze has the higher ceiling.
Okay.
But I also don't – the floor thing is really debatable because I know he's not John Ross. That's not what I'm saying here. But we're talking about a 5'10", 160-pound wide receiver. There's red flags in his profile as well.
Sure.
So who has the safer floor?
Probably Odunze.
So we're talking about a player with a higher ceiling and
a higher floor. I was just trying to see where you're at. I agree with you, but we talked about Odunze falling in consensus rankings earlier in the show, so I wanted to see where you're at between the two of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably going to happen. But I will tell you this. I am taking Worthy over a couple of these guys here listed. T. Higgins being the name that really stands out to me.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yes. I do think Njigba is just opportunity based. I do think Njigba is a really good wide receiver that I'm excited to see play at the NFL level and get meaningful snap shares and things like that. So, but I do think T. Higgins, I am taking Worthy over T. Higgins.
That's fair.
And probably Tank Dell the way the situation in Houston is playing out. It's very crowded over there in Houston.
Yeah, 100%. And I think they also profile kind of as the same player. Both undersized speed demons that are just going to go down the field and grab the ball. So, I mean, I think it's a toss-up between Tank and Xavier Worthy, and I don't think there should be much of a gap in between them at all.
Right. I do think DK Metcalf is also heavily underrated at wide receiver 22. Just want to point that out. But last player we're going to talk about tonight, and that would be Brian Thomas Jr. coming in at wide receiver 27. So the thing with Brian Thomas Jr. I also want to preach is patience, because Brian Thomas Jr. is very limited into his football exposure. He was only playing high school football as a sophomore, And then he broke out in 2023 with 17 touchdowns in the FBS, leading the FBS, excuse me. And there's not a lot of exposure to Brian Thomas Jr. at LSU. There's not a lot playing behind Kayshon Boutte and Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know if you were done or not yet. I don't want to talk about – well, I'll talk about the player for a second, but we'll get to my next question in a second. But I think the landing spot for him is actually pretty solid with the Jags, right? I mean, you bring in Gabe Davis, but Gabe Davis hasn't really been much of anything, even in an elite offense with Josh Allen, right? So I kind of disposed of that. But Christian Kirk, who's 100% his guy, and Evan Ingram, two guys that are probably – so he's probably sitting there third in targets on the team.
What about ETN?
I think they target ETN when they have to, not when they want to. I mean, he's not the receiving back that we thought he was going to be coming out of college, whether that be the system or what's going on. But, yeah, I still think that Brian Thomas probably out-targets ETN. But one thing with him is his route tree is so limited as of right now. Now, is that something that can get fixed? Yeah, sure. But right now he's kind of like a go and a out guy. And that's kind of all he's really got strong in this bag. At least, sure, he can run slants. He can run the short routes, no problem. I mean, that's expected. But it still needs some work. I think he still needs some.
Like I said, very limited. Very limited. LSU only asked him to do a few things here, and that's create opportunities down the field. You're a 6'3", 200-pound wide receiver with 4.3 speed. I need you to go do things that we need you to do. Create down the field. Your post routes, your go routes, just things like that. He was really good at comeback routes as well. I did notice that. He has great hip fluidity. He has great footwork, and he's got good separation ability. And I like Brian Thomas Jr. I do. But my question to you is, where does he fit in?
I mean, he's going to be their deep ball guy. I think they have it set up where Christian Kirk's probably their target hog. Evan Ingram's probably their safe dump off route. And then you have Brian Thomas, who's going to take the top off of the defense. No problem. I mean, I don't know what the forward time is off the top of his head, but it was in the 4.3s.
4.34.
At 6'3", I mean, that's their deep ball guy. That's their big play guy. And I think Trevor Lawrence is going to look his way a good amount.
Right. And I know we can't project. I'm not projecting targets for guys yet, but let's just look at it. Christian Kirk goes down in week, 14 last year? Can't remember. I think it was like 13, 14, maybe 15, but we know he went down. Heavy volume for Christian Kirk. Lucrative contract that he signed. He's a big part of what the Jaguars want to do. Evan Ingram. Dog.
Yeah.
Sorry he didn't work out. Sorry he didn't work out for you guys, but oh my. That's 114 targets for a tight end is nothing to bat an eye about. He's an absolute beast. He fits this system. He loves Trevor Lawrence, and they play well together. Yeah, again, you lose Calvin Ridley, but you bring in Gabe Davis. I don't know how Gabe Davis fits into this roster. I really don't. But then we have ETN with over 70 targets last year for the running back position. So my question with Brian Thomas Jr. is, and I know there's not many 6'3", 200, 4'3" guys. I get it. Very limited in what he can do. I do think he needs to be coached up a little bit. But where does he fit in? Yeah. That's the only question I ask for you.
Well, that's what I told you. He wins the deep balls, right? He's not going to be a guy that's going to go out there and get 100 targets. I don't expect to go anywhere near that. But who's to say he won't get 75 targets and he's not averaging 18, 19 yards per catch? I mean, that's pretty significant. I think that's kind of where he schemes in pretty well for Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence, at least in my opinion, has a notorious deep ball. I think he can get it to him, no problem. Yeah, I didn't even read this comment, but yeah, similar situation where I think he can kind of be George Pickett's big play guy compared to Deontay, who's let me just go have sure hands and get him the ball.
And this is where I wanted you to go with it right here. Yeah. Because, yes, this is where he's going to make his money. I am a fan of Brian Thomas Jr. I just think that's why I preach patience with this guy, because it's so crowded in Jacksonville. Again, I know Dynasty is the long-term game, but you may be frustrated with Brian Thomas Jr. You may see a game where he goes for 6 catches for $135 and 2 touchdowns. I've seen that many a times from George Pickens, and then I've seen games where George Pickens goes 3 targets for 2 catches for 18 yards. It happens. That's what kind of receiver this is.
Right.
But he is going to make an impact. He is going to fit well with Trevor Lawrence. Again, it's just crowded. You need to be patient.
Patience. Always preach patience. Now, before we wrap this up, I'm not going to put a trade value to Brian Thomas. I'll leave it with this question here for you. And I'm not even sure how I'd answer it, to be honest. I think for me, there's a significant tier fall off for prospects after the 1-9. I think 110 and on get a little bit shaky. I don't think these guys are 100% guaranteed. So you get to the 110, Brian Thomas is there. I don't want to put a player or a pick to anything, but would you move out of the 110 spot and get rid of Brian Thomas Jr.?
Man, I'll be honest with you. When I got to see a guy like George Pickens, who was heavy ball dominant, big receiver, physical receiver, big playmaker type of guy, and when you finally got to see Pickens in those situations where he could thrive in what he did, the coaches schemed up for him to touch the ball, and it was just a beautiful thing when I watched that happen. I think Brian Thomas Jr., like we said, in this part of the draft, has one of the highest ceilings in the draft after this. I have to chase the ceiling. You have to.
Yeah.
How many times do you see a 6'3", like I said, 215-pound wide receiver run a 4.34 with that kind of separation ability? That dude is a beast. Again, like I said, limited, very limited to his football exposure. Did not pick up a football until his sophomore year in high school. So I think you have to, like I said, preach patience. But I do think the sky's the limit for Brian Thomas Jr. I really do. I want that pick.
Yeah. Also, I'm with you. I kind of been back and forth into my head if I have the 110 in a couple leagues. As far as wanting to keep it and draft Brian Thomas or trade it away, I think I've finally decided that I probably would just hold on to Brian Thomas, hope for the upside, and hope he can get kind of like we just talked about the George Pickens role of this Jaguars offense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, like I said, it's going to take time.
Yeah. It's crowded right now, but
yeah, very crowded. But that's going to actually wrap it up for tonight. We just did the first 10, and this is going to be an ongoing segment that you and I are going to do. We're going to cover the rookie class here. We're going to talk about their exposure. We're going to talk about their trade values. We're going to talk about what they mean to their future rosters and if their value is going to increase or decrease. And I'll be honest with you, it was really good to start this off with such a positive show. A lot of people in here dropping comments and having fun conversation with us. It means a lot. So thank you for that. Ryan, we have not discussed when the show is going to go live, like consistently. We wanted to get the show going. I know we were deciding. I think it's going to be on Mondays, right? Mondays are what we're going to do.
Yep. That's the plan. 8:45 is the usual time. That's always going to stick. 8:45 Eastern time. If you're not on East Coast, adjust correctly. But yeah, probably going Mondays, 8:45 Eastern, week in, week out, bearing catastrophe.
And then every other week, we're going to pick a day due to my work schedule. But we are going to do that. So we just want to be upfront and honest about what we have going on over here.
Yep.
So you can expect a podcast for 11 through 20 for the players in that range. We're going to do a podcast covering them for their dynasty values and things like that. Ryan, other than that, is there anything that you'd like to say before we get out of here?
Yeah. Thanks to everybody that tuned in tonight. Appreciate the people that ask questions in the comments. We love the interaction through the screen. And thank you, Dynasty Football Factory, for taking a chance on us. This is our first show. We're going to get better each and every show. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Me and Steve are huge Dynasty grinders. Those of you that are watching, stick with us. We'll help you win your leagues. Steve, hit us with the outro.
Yeah. So again, I just want to take my time to thank Dynasty Football Factory. We appreciate everybody over there. Appreciate the team that we get to work with. They are a great group of guys. If you are not, check out, if you do not already, check out the website, check out the membership package. If you like the content that Ryan and I put out tonight, like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe. We sincerely appreciate it. You guys are helping us with our dream here as well. And like we always like to say on this show, always be building. And thank you, and we're out.